have a look at this quotation. The moment has come to contradict the myth of the humanistic disciplines, which are essentially concentrated in ancient Greek culture, in Plato, Aristotle, and the usual ancient philosophers. All this, in fact, is at odds with the modern world. When one looks at what is essential, the scientific disciplines of every sort may turn out to be much more useful. Every curriculum in schools and academic colleges should be redesigned with new categories oriented more towards the world of work and less towards the world of ideas. The academic university must promote the scientific disciplines and computer science. It is not enough to add a lesson in computer science here and there, because, as has been said, one swallow does not make a summer. Good. Now, what do you think about? What do you think about this quotation? Do you agree? Why I show you that now? So it is a matter of a lot of people of speaking against Aristotle. So Ali, yeah, please.
Sure. As I understood from the text, I can see there's a contradiction between the old period of philosophy and the new period. So in the old time, in ancient times, the philosophy was made of kind of a like to understand, to have quite quality time for understand people each other. But now, when it comes to new era, a lot of things are coming around, because the wars and all those politics are making us busy, so that we can't like really become each understand this context from the old to new.
Ali, I completely agree with you, but I don't think so. Just another Ndengva Karanu. Just briefly.
Thank you. That's a very fascinating comment and quotation, because I think if we critique that, what that would mean is that we critique modern philosophy because of the Greek influence across the conceptualization of philosophy. And so we will still use the same principles to critique the very foundation upon which the Greek culture and philosophy is based. So I think that's an interesting and fascinating one for me, because it may just prove to be cyclical, but I'm interested and I'm longing to listen.
Thank you. Now, thank you very much. Everything is right. But the reason why I show you this text is the following one. Please analyze this text. This is a text clearly against ancient philosophy, against the humanistic discipline. But please have a look at that. The moment is going to contradict the myth, and then essentially, and then again, what is essential, discipline of every sort, and then academic colleges and ideas, categories, and then one swallow does not make a sum. Now I need now to show that. So contradict. So contradict, and then myth, this one. So there are many words within this text which are impossible to understand without ancient philosophy. Take, for example, categories. So even the talk against ancient philosophy contains originally ancient Greek philosophical words. So take, for example, categories. Take academy. So academy, the Plato's academy. So without the Plato's academy, the word academic would not exist at all. And take, for example, school as sort or kind. This is even a philosophical. And then what about essential again? So, and what about this one? One swallow does not make a summer. Okay, did you know that this is quoted already in Aristotle's Ethics? So it is impossible to speak against ancient philosophy without using it. So, and without using Aristotle. So Aristotle is in fact within our cultural DNA. Okay, if we speak against him, we have to use him. Yeah. Now, so yeah, Aristotle. So I would like to present you now Aristotle. He is Aristotle. I introduce you Aristotle. Welcome among us. Yeah, to Lucerne and to okay. Now. This is part of our cultural DNA. Even those who now speak against him, they have to presuppose him. But then I would like to tell you a beautiful story, the story of, or the first story of Aristotle's Metaphysics, of the book, the book. So metaphysics was born, as you know, in Athens, Greece, in the 4th century BC, thanks to Aristotle of Stagira, you know that. So at the beginning, Aristotle of metaphysics, spoke ancient Greek. The metaphysics grew up happily, as you know, in ancient Greek and partly in the non-Christian Roman Empire. The spread of domination of Christianity, however, undoubtedly represented a very difficult period in the history of the metaphysics. It is a fact that for many centuries, Christians banned Greek philosophy due to its paganism, or at least the Aristotelian philosophy. One need only think at the closure of the Platonic Academy by Emperor Justinian in AD 529. It is a historical fact that Islam saved the metaphysics from contempt and oblivion. It is a documented historical fact that between 715 and 946, the Abbasid Caliphate, which founded Baghdad, was responsible for translating the metaphysics into Arabic and rescuing Aristotle from the sea of oblivion. The promoters of this cultural movement, perhaps you know that, which rediscovered and re-evaluated Aristotle, those who in a way invested in the translations of Aristotle, were Muslim. This is not an interpretation, this is a historical fact. It has been undoubtedly demonstrated that under the reign of these caliphs, especially under Al-Mamun, from 813 and 833, Christians were not considered as infidels, but they participated in the cultural projects which relaunched Aristotelian philosophy. Here, I'm not speaking of Christians in general, but just of those who came from Syria, who had no prejudices against Greek philosophy, as was the case at that time with all other Christians. And they spoke Greek as well as Arabic due to the Byzantine domination. Specifically, the translators of Aristotle's Metaphysics into Arabic, among others, were the following Syrian Christians. Please, Mustafa, can you please tell us the name of these completely ignored people who were absolutely essential for our Western culture, even though they don't appear in any history of philosophy? Please, except
with great pleasure.
Philosophy by Alain de Libera. Please, Mustafa.
Of course. Ishaq ibn Hunayn, for example, Ustath an anonymous author with a commentary by Yahya ibn Adi, Nadif ibn Ayman, Ibn al-Nadim, Ibn al-Zur'a, and so on.
Thank you. So without them, I mean, we now could not read Aristotle. This is a matter of fact. This is a fact. So in any case, not only did the Abbasids support the translations financially, but they also sent translators to Constantinople to search for manuscripts of the Greek philosophers, which had been banned and then forgotten by Christians. Furthermore, they founded, as you perhaps may know, the so-called House of Wisdom. Where was that House of Wisdom? In Baghdad, where Aristotle's ideas were not only translated, but also discussed. Only in this way was possible the birth and the development of the so-called peripatetic Muslim school, which produced such great thinkers and philosophers and theologians as the Arab Al-Kindi, the Turkish Al-Farabi, the Persian Ibn Sina, Avicenna, and the Andalusian Ibn Rushd, Averroes, who were all at the same time Muslim and Aristotelian. Now, do you know that Avicenna explained, as Mustafa knows very well, that he finally understood, after I think 40 times, he finally understood Aristotles Metaphysics. Where in Baghdad? No, he understood. He told us that he understood Aristotles Metaphysics in Bukhara. So it is an historical fact. I think Bukhara is now in Uzbekistan, isn't it? Now. So the Abbasids' agenda was clear. If the Byzantine Christians had abandoned science because of Christianity, Muslims could reclaim it precisely because of their faith. So at the beginning of the 9th century, Muslims were not afraid of making Aristotle and his metaphysics the cornerstone of their theology. Whilst the Christian, I quote Pasquale Porro, Christian and Jews no longer had any philosopher, they no longer felt any need for philosophy at that time, because they felt that it could generate doubts and unbeliefs. So the era of the Abbasids represents an epochal moment in human history, a moment often undervalued, but to which, as Dimitri Gutas, do you know Dimitri Gutas, by the way, as a very important professor, colleagues of our, one of the great scholars of that period, wrote the same value of the Athens of Pericles, of the Italian Renaissance, or of the scientific revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries should be attributed. So it was a very important period. Thus, at the end of the 9th century, thanks to the Muslims' help, Aristotle was speaking Arabic in Baghdad and in Bukhara, whilst in Paris, metaphysics was still completely unheard of. Now, just sorry, I had to check my light. So now, you know, I am from Sicily. I don't know if you know that. So I'm very happy now to speak about another country. Just as under the Abbasid dynasty, Muslims were responsible for saving Aristotle, in fact, under the Norman dynasty, Christians were responsible for Aristotle's entrance into the Latin West. Already during the reign of Roger II, the Norman, who became king of Sicily, the Christian West had finally opened itself for the first time to Greek culture. Did you know that? I think so. With Frederick II, his grandson, who was Norman on his mother's side and German on his father's side, the West got to know Aristotle's metaphysics for the first time. At his court in Palermo, Frederick II commissioned Michael Scott, a Scotsman who had previously lived in Toledo, to translate the Greek pagan Aristotle's Metaphysics along with a commentary by the Muslim Averroes from Arabic into Latin. We know that the translation was completed, as Marta Borgo now knows very well, in 1224 in Palermo, thanks to René Antoine Gautier. And that in the same year, very probably Frederick II physically took it with him to Naples, to the secular university which he had just founded, 1224. Then Petrus Ibernia, Peter of Ireland, an Irishman who was a pure Aristotelian and probably taught classes on the metaphysics and the physics there, probably, was called to teach at the same Neapolitan University, Naples, the so-called Studium Generale. Pasquale, you know that. He is from Naples, by the way. Imagine the situation. An Irishman in Naples teaching Aristotle's metaphysics with a commentary by the Muslim Averroes, translating from Arabic into Latin in Palermo by a Scotsman on behalf of a half German, half French Christian emperor. Incredible. This is incredible. This is our history. Well, not many people know that in about 1214, a young, well-born, slightly chubby and very switched on man, barely 16, went to study to the University in Naples, and thus also attended the classes of Petrus of Ibernia, Peter of Ireland. Who was this fellow? Who was this young man, young student? He was Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas, here was another milestone, albeit barely noted, in the exciting history of the metaphysics. Between the ages of 16 and 18, Thomas Aquinas, one of the most important and influential thinkers in medieval Christian philosophy, as you may know, was so famously influenced all modern scholasticism, and through this all modern thought, in fact, studied at Naples, at the school of Peter of the Irishman, the Greek pagan Aristotle's Metaphysics, with a commentary by the Muslim Averroes, translated from Arabic into Latin by Scotsman in Palermo, on behalf of half German, half French Christian emperor. This is, dear friends, our DNA. This is our cultural DNA. This is the unexpected ancestry of our so-called pure Western cultural DNA. Now, conclusion. Our Western cultural dictionary was born in ancient Greece, but then was subsequently articulated, thought out, and re-elaborated in Arabic, Latin, and then obviously in German. Think, for example, of Brentano, and only finally in English. Think at the new neo-Aristotelian nowadays, yeah, in Stanford, Oxford, and in Australia, Melbourne, for example. It was contemplated, endorsed, and developed in Athens, Alexandria, Baghdad, Bukhara, Cordoba, Toledo, Palermo, Naples, before arriving in Paris and Oxford, and before reaching Vienna, think of Brentano, and nowadays Melbourne, think of Graham Priest, for example, a very well-known philosopher, well-known metaphysics. So this is, dear friends, our so-called Western DNA. We would like to not forget it. This is the main reason of this new masters in philosophy, theology, and religions. Lest we forget the whole multicultural history, unless we forget our common cultural DNA. So I do think that we have time now to have a look at a video clip that you might know that represent a metaphor in a way of what I have just said. I have analyzed a part of the history of our cultural DNA. You may know a quite famous video clip, and just let me think. Okay, you might know this. It lasts just 4 minutes or 5 minutes. Do you have time to look at that? Because I do think that exactly nowadays, especially nowadays, we do need it. We do need it to watch it away. Can you see that? Yeah. So andiamo. Can you hear that?
I'm proud to be English. My family have served and we've defended this country and we've been to war for this country.
I'm really patriotic about Bangladesh.
Well, I am 100% Islamic, yeah, definitely.
This is a Kurdish wedding with my mom in the traditional Kurdish clothes.
We're just proud black, so that's it.
Yeah, I think we are probably the best country in the world, if I'm honest.
Think about other countries and other nationalities in the world. Are there any that you don't feel you get on with well, or you won't like particularly?
Germany. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Germans.
You might think that a little bit.
Particularly India and Pakistan, probably because of the whole, the conflict.
Because I have this side of me that's like, that hates Turkish people. Not people, but the government. But French,
No.
We're just best, it's just fact.
I'm more important than you. I don't know you, but in my opinion, I am strong and I am more important than a lot of people.
how would you feel about taking a journey based on your DNA?
Yeah, I feel very intrigued.
What could you possibly tell me that I don't know?
So do you know how DNA works? So you get half from mum and half from dad. So 50% from each of them, and they get 50% from their parents, and back and back and back. And all those little bits of your ancestor, they filter down to make you, you. I need you to spit in this tube for me. You spit up to the little black line.
That's a lot of spit.
The story of you is in that tube. What's it going to tell me?
It's going to be, oh yeah, you're French. And wait, your grandparents are French. And wait.
100% Bengali.
Solid Iraqi.
I'm Cuban.
You're going to tell me that I'm English? No, I've told you.
Jay, you come down and join us?
I'm a little bit nervous, I have to say.
So you ready to find out your results? Will you read it out to us, please?
Look at me.
Oh my God. Wow. I didn't expect that. All of them.
Whoa.
No.
Caucasus, which was Turkish?
Yeah.
Eastern Europe, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece.
I'm 32% British.
What? Great Britain, 30%. 5% German.
I'm Irish.
Yeah, so I'm a Muslim Jew. Great Britain, 11%.
You sure these results are mine?
Eastern Europe. Iceland has definitely moved closer to Europe now.
I'm going to go a bit far right now, but this should be compulsory. There would be no such thing as like extremism in the world if people knew their heritage like that. Like, who would be stupid enough to think of such thing as like a pure race?
in a way, we're all kind of cousins in a broad sense. In a much more direct sense, you have a cousin in this room. Turn around and guess who it is. Wash?
Yeah. What's that?
Why don't you come down here and meet your cousin?
I didn't know I did. This is like, my heart's pounding right now. I said to God. Jay from everywhere, but I'm a real man of the world.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you. So would you like to travel to all of these places?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. I think it's exactly the spirit of this master. But now I would like to tell you briefly in 4 minutes the main idea. So I just really told you the spirit, this is to say, to analyze the cultural DNA. And yeah, I would like just to tell you the story, how this master was born in a way. During the last pandemic, I had time to stop and think. I thought back over my now 25 years of university teaching and the many students I have the good fortune to meet. In particular, 3 came to mind who were not only very talented, but also very disappointed with the philosophy courses they had taken. I remember the time, and I still remember, one who studied philosophy at a well-known secular university. She was brilliant. Once she told me, "Professor, I am tired of studying philosophy as if God didn't exist." She felt uncomfortable as a believer to hear her professors talk about God as if God were a simple illusion that a true philosopher should do without. Another student studied philosophy, I remember, at the British University, and he too was very brilliant. Still, he was very tired of studying analytic philosophy, as if the history of philosophy didn't exist. Once he told me, my professors quote Aristotle just to say Aristotle basically thought like me. Nobody who says, I think like Aristotle. You know that. Joe Pizarro, I know that you know that. Everybody is just talking about themselves. This is quite typical among analytic philosophers. Finally, I do remember a student who studied philosophy or history of philosophy in this case at a very renowned Italian university, where history of philosophy was taught at a very high level, by the way. Yet she was very dissatisfied with studying history of philosophy as if Islamic philosophy didn't exist, especially contemporary Islamic philosophy, as if Islamic philosophy didn't exist at all. She felt uncomfortable seeing her professors completely ignoring important philosophical texts in Arabic, as if Islamic philosophy didn't exist. Were these students right or not? What do you think? Honestly, I think so. They were completely right. Philosophy is often thought nowadays as if God didn't exist, as if the history of philosophy didn't exist, and especially as if Islamic philosophy, contemporary Islamic philosophy, didn't exist at all. However, without the history of philosophy, analytic philosophy would not exist. And without Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, most part of the history of philosophy would simply not exist. This is a historical fact. It's not an interpretation. You know that. This is the reason why during this pandemic, my dear friends, David Anzalone is there. David, eccolo. And Marco, I don't know if he's here, Marco Lamanna and I, together with many excellent colleagues from all over the world, who have created this new master online in philosophy, theology, and religions. Please know the plural, religions. We very much look forward to welcoming you to these masters. Here, the history of philosophy, including Jewish, Christian, and Islamic philosophy, does matter. And above all here, if I may say that, God does matter, even philosophically. In a way, God is a password to this master. So do you remember the very famous advertising, so publicity, no God, no party? And because at the end of the day, the most beautiful party ever, we do think, is that of God. So welcome to this master.